Hey, it's State of State. We got your Nittany Lion update. It's a football discussion with Tom and Justin, so kick back and press play.
With former Penn State and NFL defensive back Justin King, I'm Tom Hannafin. This is State of State. Please like, comment, subscribe, rate us, and turn on notifications. Follow us on social media at State of State Pod. Comment on our YouTube channel. And if you haven't done so already, you can become a member of our YouTube channel. For just 99 cents a month, you can get all upcoming episodes of State of State, plus our entire members-only playlist, ad-free, commercial-free. Hit the join button on our homepage or follow the link in the description of this podcast. This podcast is presented by BetOnline. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for all your sports betting action. Baseball season is in full swing, as are the NBA and NHL playoffs. There are so many ways to get in the action with the latest odds, news, and scores, even live in-game betting while the games are being played. With the largest selection of odds on everything from Major League Baseball to the NBA, the NHL, and UFC, BetOnline remains the number one online source for all your sports wagering info. In between games, head over to the BetOnline casino with all the top Vegas-style games, including poker and live casino. Penn State fans, are you feeling confident that the Nittany Lions can win college football's national championship next season, or that Abdul Carter will go number one overall in the NFL draft? Lock in your futures bet at betonline.ag today. State of State is presented by BetOnline. The game starts here. State of State is a proud supporter of Blue White Outfitters. Blue White Outfitters was created as a retail shop meant to highlight the confidence, competitiveness, and fearlessness of the elite athletes found throughout the history of Penn State University. Check out their Lockdown U and Lawn Boys merchandise today. All sales from Blue White Outfitters directly benefit Penn State student athletes. Also, official State of State merchandise is available now. Support the show and grab State of State t-shirts, hoodies, hats, and more. Visit www.bluewhiteoutfitters.com today. Hi, everyone, and welcome to State of State. I'm Tom Hannafin. Justin King is back. This is a big week for Penn State football. The transfer portal in the spring window is open until this Friday, the 25th, and then on Saturday, April 26th, non-televised, it's the blue-white game at 2 p.m. Eastern time. So for those of you that can make it to Beaver Stadium, then you'll be able to see what Penn State is fielding potentially for the 2025 season. But today we're talking about Penn State's transfer portal targets, and also we'll get to a few players from Penn State's roster that are no longer with the team that have hopped into the transfer portal within the last week. So want to kind of touch base once again on the situation surrounding Syracuse wide receiver Trebor Pena. He visited State College this past Friday. Obviously, the holiday over the weekend, everybody trying to stop down and at least have a life for a hot second. And it sounds like Trebor Pena, according to On3 and 24/7 Sports, Pena has visits lined up with UCLA, USC, and Miami. However, there is a projection and a prediction that he could wind up at Penn State. Ultimately, according to those platforms and those reporters, remains to be seen. Pena is an interesting story. Justin, you and I are big fans of what Syracuse head coach Fran Brown is all about. He was very public about saying, I'm not going to pay $2 million for a receiver, saying that's for the quote, the homie at Ohio State, being Jeremiah Smith. I love the way that he phrased it. I love the way that he put that dollar amount next to a certain talent. And it's nothing against Trebor Pena. There's a very good chance he could be very helpful to Penn State. That dollar amount, if that is the dollar amount that Trebor Pena went to Happy Valley with asking for, I'd be pretty surprised. Don't know what those conversations were like in terms of a dollar amount, but what's your overall feeling about Pena?
I mean, he seems to have a market for himself in this transfer portal era. But I mean, he's a productive receiver, right? Like somebody that, I mean, obviously demands some attention. But again, with receivers, I think there's a lot of things that go into it. I don't know if he's like, hey, just let's isolate this guy and put our game plan around him. But I think he's a critical piece that can provide a lot of value to a lot of teams. So I think there's a market for him. And if we land him, great. And if we don't, got to find somebody.
I talked about it a little bit last week here on the show, is that You already have Drew Aller getting acclimated to Kyron Hudson, the transfer from USC, and Devontae Ross, the transfer from Troy. It sounds like those are going very well, and Drew Aller has spoken publicly saying that they are going well. But you're still someone who's been in the offense now under Andy Kotelnicki for a full year, plus two guys who are coming in and getting accustomed to the offense. How complicated would that be for Aller and the rest of the offense to potentially bring in a third transfer wide receiver, and the distinct possibility that maybe your top three wide receivers are all transfers?
I mean, I think with receivers, there is some chemistry, but you can get around that curve if the quarterback and the receivers put in some time. And a lot of guys that are in some pass happy offenses, they get a nice feel for the game, right? If they had a lot of snaps and have a feel for the zone and kind of, how things operate within reading coverages and stuff like that. I mean, it just comes down to getting used to the ball velocity from the quarterback and some level of how you guys see it in scramble drills and things of that nature. So, I mean, it actually isn't that much of a learning curve for receivers, I think, to step in and make an impact that have a substantial amount of, background playing and pass happy offenses versus someone that hasn't produced. And it's like, hey, let's see if he will produce. I think that's a different situation.
Based on the stuff that's out there from Fran Brown, do you have any character concerns when it comes to Trebor Pena? Or does it, to me, it sounded like a dude going to his last year of eligibility, a little concerned about who the starting quarterback was going to be, potential drop off. And he probably shot for the moon in terms of money because he was like, hey, this season might not be as productive as it was for me last year. If I can't get this money here, I'll go someplace else and try and be more productive. Hopefully he's shown some wiggle room on that number, because we've seen with Nico Iamaleava how far down that number can go.
You talk about it, man, right? Like, bad advice kills careers. And whether it's relationship with a coach, whether it's not understanding your true value, but also towing that line of getting the most money that you can if you're not going to make a substantial amount at the professional level. So it's a fine line, but he seems to have a market for himself if he's willing to, I guess, negotiate the right way and land a deal. And I mean, he can probably make some good money and have an impact on a quality team this year. So it's not that it's a bad move. It's just, how are you playing your cards, right?
Any concern for you, considering like he's got multiple visits lined up, Pena, and the clock's ticking to the point I was saying about, hey, Hudson and Ross have been in since the winter. You're getting in hopefully soon, wherever it is you're going. Does that just make that even more difficult for a wide receiver to learn the offense, get in? Let's like, hey, you kind of got to make a choice here quickly.
Well, it does make it difficult. And I think just this overall transfer window is more difficult for players to get acclimated into a team and have an impact just from, the minimal amount of time that you have before you guys go live. But I mean, I don't have any character concerns. I don't know too much about him to have any character concerns. But if he's just like a 1 year rental or a 6 month rental, you just kind of have to view it that way and see how much weigh the need that you have versus him being a cancer in the locker room, if that were going to be a problem.
The irony, I mentioned Nico Iamaleava, who is now transferred to UCLA, which is one of the teams that Pena is apparently going to be visiting. So UCLA becomes an attractive place for a wide receiver, Trebor Pena, especially to be playing with a talent like Nico Iamaleava. The thing that just makes me laugh is Nico was getting 2.4 allegedly. He wanted 4. Tennessee said take a hike. Now he's off to UCLA, where allegedly he's getting 1.75. And the thing that's funny to me is you went from a state in Tennessee with no state income tax on $2.4 million to now California, which absolutely has a state income tax, which is silly when you're making 7 figures. 1.75, it's like you just shot yourself in the foot financially, sure, in the short term, but also long term, what you've done to your reputation. Hopefully he rehabilitates it, man. I don't know what your thought process has been on the whole situation, but it's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate, but I mean, it's a learning experience, and happy it happened this early in his career. It's where I think he can recover, because from everything that I hear, it sounds like he's a great guy. But it's hard for some of these quarterbacks, especially young ones, right? 18, 19 years old, to get away from the shadow of their dad, especially that's the person that's kind of been invested in them, kind of guiding them through the process until this point. And now there's essentially some value you could say prematurely or whatever, but it's the age that we live in. And then, they're not qualified to give advice from the space that they are. I mean, it's extremely hard for a parent to view their son as an asset or as a product without an emotional attachment that may be a little bit, I say less. It should be biased. It should be biased, right? Like it should be, but like in terms of the business, just that biases and your feelings and emotional getting into it can really mess up your son's career with good intent. So that's why I gotta trouble that line, because it just comes down to expertise and really understanding what this checkers move does to the overall picture. Because I mean, there was an NFL talent evaluator that said maybe that $1 million was one thing on the price sheet, but it's going to cost them more on the evaluation when it comes to the NFL, because now you're just showing, like I said, 32 billionaires exactly how you do business. If you're going to do this for $4 million, what do you think you're going to do for $100 or $200 million? So like at that point, these guys want to protect their investment and their money, and they want something that's stable, like, and somewhat predictable. And that's what I try to understand, like these kids and parents to understand of like, how do you develop? Because the jumping around, yes, it can be, you can get a quick monetary return, but you can be, cutting yourself at the knees for the long-term gains.
We'll see how he does. Tino Sunseri is the offensive coordinator out there, former Pitt quarterback. Sunseri's done quite well as an offensive coordinator, so it could be a good situation. I didn't buy all the stuff from the family, not to ramble on about somebody that's at another school, but like, I didn't buy the stuff from the family. Like, oh, it wasn't about the money. It was about the offense. It's like, it was about the offense when the money wasn't figured out. And then Nico shooting his mouth off on social media, kind of tongue in cheek. I was like, oh yeah, I was holding out for a playoff game. Oh yeah, here's me and my teammate talking about how I'm going to throw the game against Ohio State. Dude, shut up. Shut up and play. At this point in time, you've screwed yourself so much. He might be a nice kid, to your point. He might be a great kid. He might be the greatest quarterback that ever played. Shut up. Like, you really need to shut up at this point in time.
Oh, when that heat and those lights get on you, man, that pressure starts coming from a different way, especially when you're beloved and it completely shifts. A lot of these guys just don't know how to handle that, and they will not know how to handle it because they've been essentially caught. I mean, we think of like the 707 circuit, the OT7, like that he made his name in. It was like a lot of promoting bullshit, right? Like, oh, the pajama pants, this, that, and it got value to it. And like, there was like, seriously, and there's money. So like, how do you, like, from just a framework of connectivism, like from him to connect that, like, oh, I'm getting value for that, and then act like this. And then now everyone switches. It's like, hey, bump you. You just automatically have that, defense mechanism, but it's not good for the player in the long run because it could just throw you away. And then now you're just a kid with pajama pants one day that messed up his career.
Yeah. So the reason I brought up anything having to do with Nico and UCLA, again, Trebor Pena has a visit scheduled with UCLA, USC within the Big Ten, Jaden Mayava. There's a lot of excitement about him. And if things don't go well with him, Lincoln Riley is still the quarterback, or still the head coach, offensive coordinator. Hassan Longstreet, very talented freshman that's in there, a quarterback as well. So there's competition, at least on that front. That could be an interesting landing spot for Pena, and that's already a crowded wide receiver room. And then Miami, Carson Beck at quarterback, transfer from Georgia. If his elbow surgery, I believe it was on his throwing arm, if that recovery goes well enough for him to be back at a decent point in time and produce, could be an opportunity for him at an ACC school, stay within the ACC. It just depends on what Pena wants. Penn State could credibly contend for a national championship this year. I don't know if I would say that about UCLA, USC, or Miami. So Penn State provides that value. And also considering it is still kind of a wide open competition at wide receiver, might be more of a chance for him playing with Drew Allar, playing with Andy Kotelnicki, a lot of creativity there. So Pena is kind of a wait and see situation. Another wide receiver that I want to touch on that I would think that Andy Kotelnicki might really love is wide receiver Keelan Marion, formerly of UConn and most recently of BYU. 2021 and 2022, he spent with the UConn Huskies. In the last 2 seasons, he's been with BYU. His first 2 years at UConn, he had 32 total catches his first year at UConn, 28 for 474 and 5 touchdowns, averaged 17 yards per reception. Didn't get to play as much, had some injury issues in 2022. And then 2023 with BYU, 20 catches for 216 yards receiving, 24 24 receptions and 346 yards receiving, 14.4 yards per reception, and 1 touchdown. The interesting part, as I mentioned, Kotelnicki might like this, is that at BYU, 2023, 9 carries for 40 yards, 3 touchdowns. 2024, 21 carries, 96 yards, 2 touchdowns. And, oh, by the way, returns kickoffs quite well. 2023 at BYU, 19 kickoffs for 393 yards. And then in 2024, this is where he really went off, and this is why people are excited about him, is 18 kickoff returns for 472 yards and 2 touchdowns. So last year, he was very productive, if I'm adding everything up correctly, just 5 total touchdowns, but still doing it as a receiver, as a runner, and as a kick returner. He also returned punts at one point when he was at UConn. So there's just a lot of value, it seems like, for a guy coming out of the Big 12 last year, had a decent year, obviously wasn't the primary wide receiver for that offense, but this could be an interesting value add for an Andy Kotelnicki offense. We've already talked about Devontae Ross also has kick return experience for Troy, and early on it seems like he could be the guy returning punts for Penn State if they're looking for somebody to return kicks. Again, that's been something that Nick Singleton has done. Do they want to keep doing that, or is this year going to be such a big focus for Penn State with Singleton and Allen that they're like, hey, let's just take this off Nick's plate? A lot of questions, but when you hear that skill set about Keelan Marion, what do you think about him potentially fitting in at Penn State?
It seems like it'd be a good fit. I mean, I think Kotelnicki does a good job of utilizing guys to their strengths and where they're at. I mean, based on what you said, kind of seems like a change up with what we have. I mean, we don't have too many of those guys currently, right? Like a bare body receiver doing those type of things. But again, receivers are very interesting because it comes down to when they get into the system and how they actually operate, because everything's a little bit different. So we'll wait and see.
A little bit of everything there from Keelan Marion. Allegedly, Penn State and Ohio State have interest. Apparently, SMU, Miami, and Tennessee have visits set up with BYU's wide receiver Keelan Marion, and also Arizona State potentially has some interest. So there's a lot of this happens every transfer portal cycle, is that you'll see a guy go into the portal and then some graphic will go up and it's like 20 schools have interest. It's like, yeah, cool. So we'll see if Penn State ultimately brings him in. The question I posed last week is that if Penn State were to bring in Pena, Marion, somebody else at wide receiver, does that then have a domino effect on the rest of the room in terms of a guy like Tysier Denmark, for instance, who could viably be the number 3 wide receiver this year? And they've said, hey, we want him to step up. He's flash, but he needs to be more consistent. You have Liam Clifford, which is a reliable, dependable source, at least. You know what he is. Is he going to elevate the room? Anything? Doubtful, but still, like, you know what he is. And then it's the grab bag of all these other guys that it's like we're waiting for them to do something, or they're at least freshmen that look like they have some potential, like Kobe Howard, Lyric Samuel, Matthew Otten. And then there's the Peter Gonzalez's of the world who are recovering from injury. You have Caden Saunders, wait and see. Anthony Ivy, wait and see. Josiah Brown, wait and see, you know.
Well, it definitely affects the room when you bring in new talent and plug and play talent, right? And it shows the room that you guys haven't really hit the mark that the staff is looking for to feel comfortable going into the season. So it's a lot of professional dynamics, and it's very interesting because these are like the mental hurdles that athletes a lot of times stumble over, right? When it's like, oh, thinking about the play, your expectations aren't met. And how do you recover from that, from showing up on a daily basis? Because like you said, you might be better than these guys that come in, but you might not. And how do you respond to those guys taking your reps and things of that nature? So that's how it affects the rest of the room, right? I think it makes everybody a little tighter, but also recognize that there's a sense of urgency that the whole program is operating under, and that we're going to bring in two couple receivers after spring. So that means like, hey, we'll tell them what to do, run this route, stick at the, you know what I mean? So we'll make it work. And you just haven't hit that mark for us to feel comfortable yet. So it's a good reality though, I think, for a player. It's a dynamic that, again, when you see it in the NFL, it's like, whoa, all right, lock in. But now they get hit with it for real.
Yeah, and which guys decide to stay, continue to be developed, which guys are like, hey, I want to go play now. I have to get this tape now. What guys are motivated by money? There's a lot of dominoes that will fall potentially if Penn State goes and adds another wide receiver. Speaking on Penn State departures, touched on a bunch of these last week. There's been another name added to the pile. Defensive end Joseph Mpoyi has entered the transfer portal. He was a 4-star in the class of 2023. He will have 3 years of eligibility remaining. Nothing against Joseph. This was not a situation where it's a huge hit to Penn State. It's just another guy along the depth chart that it's like, okay, this guy was battling maybe to be the 3rd or 4th defensive end in a rotation. So hopefully he finds a good landing spot. Don't know if you have any feelings on Mopoye.
Good luck in the portal.
Mm-hmm. I didn't get your opinions on the ones that have hopped into the portal. I think we talked a little bit about JB Nelson, but he's visiting Georgia Tech and a number of ACC schools. Sounded like it was just going to be a crowded guard competition and might not have been able to win the job based on what he saw during winter and spring, but not too much concern about Penn State, what they have at guard. But JB Nelson into the portal. John Mitchell at corner has transferred to Georgia Tech. I'm trying to remember. Beckham D at linebackers entered the transfer portal. He was somebody that James Franklin shouted out very recently at the beginning of spring practices. So again, was lower on the depth charts, was not a big hit to what Penn State is going to put on the field in 2025, but somebody with a lot of eligibility. And then the one that was a head scratcher, and you and I texted about it a little bit, Tamir Robinson, linebacker, who's expected to be potentially the number 3 linebacker and shoot. You never know when an injury is going to crop up. It's Tony Rojas and Dom DeLuca that were really ahead of him. He's got a visit that just went down with USC. That was a surprise to me with Tamir.
He's going to go to USC. I mean, everybody has to find their place, and maybe being a 3rd guy and some more money, or going to the West Coast was just more appealing. Sometimes again, it always comes down to whether it's advice or how we see ourselves and our value of where we're at, the whole situation, versus can we expedite that process, or is there a better situation, whether more money, more playing opportunity? I can't say comfort because you don't know what that's going to be, but everybody kind of has to scratch that itch and learn their own way.
As we wrap up here, Penn State is well represented in the NFL draft this weekend, kicking off tomorrow, as a matter of fact. According to our friends at BetOnline, the projection for Abdul Carter to go 1st overall in the NFL draft is plus 1,600. Would you take that bet that Abdul Carter goes number 1 overall? Nah. he's plus
top 5. I'll take top 5.
He's plus 600 to go 2nd overall, and then he's minus 600 to go 3rd overall.
I haven't been up on the draft like crazy like that. I gotta see the picks.
Yeah, there might be some movement. It looks like at 2 and 3, but best of luck to Abdul Carter and Tyler Warren, Jalen Reed. The list goes on and on. There's a lot.
I can go over under from pick number 3. I'll go under.
Head to betonline.ag and check it out. For those of you that want to learn more about the entire process of going into the transfer portal, if you're a high school player that is potentially trying to get to the college level and navigate this whole world, check out Justin King, LIG Sports Group. They do a fantastic job in trying to help you understand this entire circumstance. So get good advice versus bad advice. Don't be in a Nico Iamaleava situation, for instance. So, and at the same time, even if you're not an athlete or a parent or a coach that's looking for information on that, Justin's just a fantastic follow when it comes to the business of college football. So we're going to keep an eye on all of this. And this week will culminate with the closing of the spring transfer portal and Penn State's annual blue-white game.
Thank you all so much for joining us. This episode and our entire library of shows is available now on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever else you get your podcasts. Please like, comment, subscribe, rate us, and turn on notifications. Follow us on social media at State of State Pod. Comment on our YouTube channel. And if you haven't done so already, you can become a member of our YouTube channel. For just 99 cents a month, you can get all upcoming episodes of State of State, plus our entire members-only playlist, ad-free, commercial-free. Hit the join button on our homepage or follow the link in the description of this podcast. State of State is presented by BetOnline and by Blue White Outfitters.